morning. Today, we'll start off by saying a little story. Now let's see, imagine, if you will, a plant capable of pretty much providing us with everything we need, ranging from plastics, fibers, to pretty much even concrete. And also imagine that this plant had also yielded fruit that you could sell for average about $4 grand a pound. And that we have this capability of using this plant, but we choose not to based on stigmas that are loosely based on mostly superstition. And that if we were to discard these so-called societal mores that we have, we would revolutionize our way of life. And we can solve many of today's problems like, weather, for example, or the plastic crisis that many people are concerned about. I'm pretty sure you're all familiar with canvas bags and such that you have to bring into the supermarket now. Now, with all that said, there is this one plant, and it's pretty sure you all know, it's hemp, cannabis, or cannabis sativa, was the scientific name. So, hemp, I'm very familiar to you guys, is very intertwined in our country's history. It's actually one of the very key building blocks of it. Our economy, when it barely started finding out as our nation, very young after we broke off of Britain, technically we had, like any other country, to take care of an economy. So back in those days, it was production time, so just like any other country operates, we have to make something to pretty much stand afloat in the world market. And one of our key exports was hemp. Our founding fathers were hemp growers. Our first president was a hemp grower, George Washington. He had many fields in Virginia. And he quoted him saying in one of his journals saying to make the most of the Indian hemp seed and to spread it everywhere, that it was your technically American right to do so. Thomas Jefferson, in one of his writings, ensures that to ensure our economic safety, we have to secure hemp as our wealth. Now, with these things being said, hemp was integral. We made various things. Boat sails, even though they were made out of hemp. Ropes, and you're very familiar, it's made out of hemp. And say, for example, they also have the tendency, which is very debated on, if they recreationally smoked it, but I'm pretty sure they did. Now, as you may see right here, this is one of the pieces from the propaganda, the demonization story. We'll get onto that later. Then we have, like I said before, our founding fathers in the colonies. Kentucky was one of the key hemp growers at the time, next to Virginia and such. As you may see, this is a plaque that lies in Kentucky, recognizing that fact. As you may see, this is how much the annual they made at this time. So think about it. 1850, how much are we going? 4,000 tons. So if we round it up then with the inflation rate, we're talking about billions of dollars that we could be making right now, just of growing hemp. And right here we have this picture, as you can see, it's a drawing of the time. Like I said before, hemp was grown to make rope. So it's a very neat process. You break off the stem and you take it out. Rip out the fibers. We use the fibers to create the rope. And we use the wood, which is real good, for paper. Real thick wood. Find it right in the middle. Now, like I was saying, the green scare. This is back in the early 40s and such when we start. I'm pretty sure you guys are all familiar with the reefer madness craze, which many of you know. Reefer madness is a propaganda film that came out in the late 1930s, pretty much condemning anybody that smoked cannabis and pretty much equating them to criminals. And also, it was used as racial baiting as well, because minorities and black musicians love to smoke hemp. And pretty much, Mexico had this try saying like, oh, it's the devil's seed, and if you smoke it, you get crazy, the roots from hell, such and such. Oh. Yeah. So World War II rolls around, and then our demonization of hemp doesn't become as large because we get into war. So we get into war, we have naval blockades, blocking exports. So at the time, since it was illegal to grow hemp in the countries, we were getting exported hemp from different countries, such as the Philippines. So the Japanese decided to have a little naval blockade, which rendered us pretty much useless of all of our hemp supply. So very keen products, like I said before, rope, parachute, thread, was really needed. So we needed the hemp. So our government encouraged our citizens to grow hemp. So here's one of the promotional posters you see right here. It's Grow Hemp for the War. And there's this one keen film, it's very obscure, it's called Hemp for Victory. It's one of those promotional films. And it pretty much keys and influenced the American public to grow hemp, children to plant seeds everywhere, that it was, you're right to do so as an American, that it was needed. This right here we have is like one of the Kentucky fields at the time, 1942. With the bursting, this was all cannabis plants. As you can see, so we're pretty much rolling on the ball, growing hemp for our troops, good cause. And then, like I said before, the provision became official. Mr. Tricky Dick right here signed our Controlled Substance Act, and he decided to place hemp next to heroin and God knows what other things as the equivalent of danger to society, which many of us today know that it's not true, and that a poppy seed is way different than a hemp seed. Different effects. As many of you know, our morphine epidemic that we're going through today with painkillers and stuff, it's derived from poppy seeds, not hemp. You will not have that an addiction from hemp, because the worst you're gonna get addicted on is, you're just gonna smoke more hemp. It's very hard, So what we have right here is the Stamp Act, which is pre-World War II. It's when the government decided to kind of tax it, which is the beginnings of the prohibition. So they started cutting down the farms and taxing and such. But like I said before, Dickie made it official with the Controlled Substance Act. And now to some numbers. So we have hemp is a great driving force for our economy to this day. Just in 2015, we made about $573 million in total. And that is just not recreational appliance like, the herbal smoke and such. This is like industrial applications. We have right here, we have 100 million. We got food. Hemp makes great oil, which is 15 times better than olive oil. So if you guys, out there, those organic fans, you would know. Try the hemp oil, it's way better. And we have right here supplements. A lot of people use that to lose weight. Hemp seed extracts, I don't know if you've seen them. You find them at Costco. Whole Foods, very big with hemp products. Personal care, lotions, soaps, etc., And textiles. Many people that suffer from allergies, from clothing dyes, they use hemp clothing. Because technically, they don't have the same dyes. And they don't absorb the same chemicals, so they use natural dyes for that. So it's more like a natural base, so they love hemp clothing, which is really a big market exploding right now. Very expensive too. And so here are some of the hemp products right here. Here's the hemp Adidas. We got hemp Adidas. I got some hemp Adidas on right now, so to speak. This right here is the Wonder, which many people are implying to use today. This is hempcrete. So it's concrete made out of hemp. So we have here just little tiny pieces of stems condensed and compact. And you see a little brick, if you will. Now this brick right here, it's a lot better than concrete. It doesn't fester mold. It's great as porous wise, so that allows the house to breathe better. It's structurally sound, and second of all, it doesn't harvest any chemicals like asbestos and such. So you can also have this in there, and with the threads of the cannabis plant, you can people make insulation as well. Now, like I'm saying, they make insulation as well. Not to mention, recently in Colorado, I believe, there's this man, I forgot what his name was, but he has recently completely built of hempcrete because his son was technically allergic to it. And what I'm basically trying to leave you with is that if we were to discard our preconceptions, and the lovely thing is that we are, because the old guard is passing on, and so their beliefs is going on with them. 70% of Americans today approve of hemp. They want to see this implemented. They want to see this used. Even Republicans, believe it or not. Come on, see right now. If Republicans are backing it, it's good. Okay? So, this, in essence, will revolutionize our future, not only for our children, for our grandchildren. And we will leave them, in turn part, resolve our, environmental crisis, and we could heal the earth and leave our children with an overall happy earth. And then that concludes my presentation.
Can we get the lights on, please? Thank you. Miranda, you here?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I thought it was really good. There's a lot of strong points that were really apparent throughout the entire presentation. I think the biggest one is that there was no use of note cards at all. So it really helped to make, like the way he was speaking and the overall tone of the presentation seemed very natural and very, like he definitely knew what he was talking about. He knew the information, he did whatever research he thought that was necessary. So I thought that was really good. I don't really have many critiques. I think the only one is that kind of towards the middle of the presentation, going towards the end, it did seem like it was becoming more of a persuasive speech rather than an informative speech. And that's not necessarily bad. It's just, I just thought that, it was kind of changing gears of the presentation and kind of moving it into a different direction. But other than that, I thought it was really good. The visuals were really good. I personally liked how it was mainly just pictures. I'd rather look at pictures than read a bunch of text throughout the speech because for me it kind of makes me lose a little bit of focus. But yeah, I thought it was great.
Well, I'd agree with you on that. I don't think we want a bunch of text up there for us, although sometimes the text might help explain a visual that's going on there. The visuals are okay. I think that some of them are emphasizing issues other than the industry stuff that you're talking about. Some of them kind of introduce that other side issue about the criminalization and whether or not there's some other justification for marijuana, hemp products. That's one of the things I think needs to be distinguished a little bit more. Is the hemp that you're talking about the same, or is it different than the cannabis sativa that you make reference to? There may be different strains, for instance, and those different strains may not have the same amount of THC in them that makes them objectionable. Obviously, if there's a $500 million industry in hemp products here in the United States, if that's domestically produced, then it seems like it's outside of the purview of the 1970 Drug Control Act that you're talking about. So how can that be? I think there need to be some explanation of that. There's a lot of random stuff in the presentation. as it turns out, I'm trying to figure out how this is organized, and I guess it's mostly organized chronologically, because you've got this reference to the founding fathers and what things were like in those particular times. Then we get a reference to economic processes maybe 100 years later, prior to the Civil War, concerning those sorts of issues. Then we get some discussion about what was going on in the 1930s, but that's really more about the other issue, the demonization process, as opposed to the economic process. And if we're taxing it, and that's what that stamp action was all about, well, what kinds of taxes did we get? Was the purpose of the taxes to benefit the government from the sale of that particular product? There's a lot of information that never gets cited in the presentation. It feels like you read a couple of articles and you're repeating information, but you never tell us where this information came from. And some of the information I think is probably perfectly valid. Some of it I'm not quite exactly sure how convincing it is without some source on it. I don't have a lot of doubt that hemp can be used in all these particular ways. The idea, though, that it's going to fix environmental problems, I think I need a little bit more data on that kind of thing, and that's a little pie in the sky for me. So I think you need some more proof on those kinds of points. The presentation is fine for the most part. I don't have a problem with you not using the notes. In fact, I think part of what you do is you use the slides to kind of organize things. Most of the visuals, though, they don't add a lot to the presentation, and I hate the laser pointer. I wouldn't put it in your hands, except that that's got the remote in it. Otherwise, I'd probably what I should do is put get the highlighter that marks a lot or something like that, a permanent marker, and cover it up at the front and see maybe that'll stop it.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I'm good for you for being brave enough to use it, but you have to be careful because you're in a dark room. It hurts. It was hurting my eyes every time you would wave it around.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
really distracting. And then also it shows when you're nervous too, because when you stop moving, if we see nothing but the laser moving darting around, we know your hands are shaking.
Yeah.
You're not as confident. That's
The truth of the matter is, most of us come equipped with 10 pointers, and you could use any of those. They work just as well. And it, for example, would force you to step out from the side when you're going over to look at the pie chart, which was the one place where, okay, you didn't need the laser pointer for anything else. If there was a place where the laser pointer might have been appropriate, it would have been on the pie chart, because you have those really small sections that you want to refer to. But I think it would have been better for you to just walk over and reach up and point and say that kind of thing. It would make you more engaged in the presentation also, as opposed to being the narrator of the slide presentation. That happens a little bit. Time is a little bit of a problem. It's 11 minutes and 20 seconds, which means it's almost 3.5 minutes overtime, and that's a big chunk of time. That's more than 30% of the time. So you want to be careful about that. All right, thank you.